We've worked on homes, we've worked on buildings, we've worked on ovals, we've worked on pyramids, we've worked on spacing. So now we're actually going to work on the interior of a house. We're going to do the interior of a room. We're going to do it in 1, 2, and 3-point perspective. Right now this lesson is on 1-point perspective. The way to visualize this is fairly simple. You've got to be somewhere right now looking at this. If you look straight at the wall opposite you, and then keep in mind your peripheral vision, which is the vision on the sides of your eyes, you know that the walls of the room are further apart close to you, and as you look down at the wall, they get closer. And that's what we're going to mimic or match in our drawing here. So I'm going to use a horizon in the middle of the paper. I'm going to put a dot for my vanishing point, and I'm basically just going to draw a square. This would be like the far side of a wall in a particular room. Using the vanishing point from the corner of the square, I go this way, this, here, and here. And as you can see, it's almost like you're looking into a room. Now, if you have a room, you're going to have a window and/or a door. So in this particular case, I'm putting a window on this side. Windows are generally either waist high or maybe a little lower, and they go about 1.25 feet from the ceiling to the top of the window. So I proportioned this as close as I could here. Using the vanishing point, I draw the bottom of the windowsill and I draw the top. Using vertical lines, I can draw the window. Now keep in mind, this is just the opening on the inside. If I wanted to draw a window on the opposite wall, or maybe even a door, I want to make sure that the top of the door or the window on this side matches what it should be on this one. So to continue that, what I do is I use the vanishing point from the top of the window, and where it meets the corner of the wall here, I come straight across in a horizontal line, use this vanishing point to extend it out, so the top of this window would be matched by a window on this side here. If I were going to draw the bottom of the window of the same size, I would have to use the same vanishing point here for the bottom. Where it runs into this corner, I make a horizontal line to this side and continue with a vanishing point through here. So the window on this side would be the same height here. If it's closer to us, it will be bigger. If it's closer to the far wall, it will be smaller, but it will be proportionate. As it is, I'm going to draw a door on the far side here. And again, it has to be the same height in the room as the window, so that's why I use this line. At first I made the door a little bit narrower. I decided to make it wider. Just so you know, standard doors can be 24-inch, 32-inch, or 36 inches wide. You even have sometimes 30-inch doors, so they vary. I decided to put a window on this side also, so now I have this window. And you notice that the distance here is greater than the distance here, so that means this window, if it's identical in size to this, will look larger because it's closer. Notice I do the same thing that I've done in previous drawings. I draw a line from this particular corner to this corner of this window. I use a parallel line on this side so I can make this width proportionate to that. It's going to be larger because it's closer. If I erase all the lines, now I have a basic room that we're looking into with 1, 2 windows and a door. But the key is the walls have to be thick. If you look at a house, usually the walls are 6 to 8 inches thick. If you look at the old missions, they're over a foot thick wall. But anyway, to give the impression of the wall thickness on this paper, what we do is we use the vanishing point, and we also use horizontal lines. So I draw a horizontal line in this corner, and I do the same up here. I do it here and I do it here. And then what happens is I can make the thickness of the wall. This one I eyeballed, I made a little thinner than this. Then I drew a vertical line, and then I used the vanishing point to go from this point to the end of the window. I used the vanishing point here to this corner and went out, and did the same here and here. For the door, the wall thickness is going to be here. So I used this vanishing point to the corner of the door, and then I drew a horizontal line and a vertical line, match this, and sure enough, I have the thickness of the wall that the door is in. I then decided to draw a door. Now, here's a tricky part. You see how wide this beam of the door is, and you almost not see it here? That's because it's going to the vanishing point. It's behind the wall to a degree. I also made some lines on the floor, and again, I used the spacing technique we always do. I made the first thickness or width of the floorboard, could have been a sheet. I drew a line across, and then I drew a line parallel to that line in each case, and that's why these become wider as you come further forward. So from narrow, wider, even more. And this is all because I'm using those parallel lines to space. When I erase the lines I don't need, you see you have markings on the floor like sheets, and you also have the wall thickness, and you have the door. I decided to put some kind of a picture hanging on the wall. Could be a poster of anything. This one I didn't have any thickness because you're not really going to see it if it's a poster. It's very flat. And what you can do is, if this is a picture with a three-point drawing in it, you actually act as though this is your piece of paper. And you notice I have 1, 2, 3 points. So I just basically sketched a three-point perspective drawing as though it was a picture hanging on the wall inside this room. Then I decided, well, if I can put a three-point perspective drawing inside a one-point perspective room, maybe I can use a two-point perspective to draw a box that's in the room. Maybe they're just moving in. So I still have the same horizon, but I use 2 points, and I create my box. I erase some of the lines to make it easier to see, but you see I'm using this. Now keep in mind, you see that it's sitting on the floor. The tricky part with anything you draw inside the room, you want to make sure you draw the base first, so it winds up being in the room. Otherwise, maybe the box would be floating in the air, and that wouldn't work well. After I erased the lines that I made this box, I decided to put a one-point box in this space here. And you notice I'm using the one-point perspective, and I'm using horizontal and vertical lines, and sure enough I have a box. After I erase the lines I don't need, you see I have a 2-point perspective box, a 1-point perspective box, and a 3-point perspective picture, all in a 1-point perspective room interior. So this is kind of a review of all the things we've done so far in one particular lesson. When I erase more lines I don't need, it's even easier to see. Now, remember the boxes we draw initially in our first few lessons had flaps. So here, I'm drawing an X here so I can find the center of the box. I do the same here so I can find the center. Here I put on the 4 flaps. Here I left it closed. I just made it look like you had packaging tape. So this box hasn't been opened, this one is, or had been. I erase the lines I don't need. So again, I want to repeat. We have a 1-point perspective room. We have a 3-point perspective cityscape on a poster in the room. We have a 2-point perspective box with open flaps on the floor. And we have a 1-point perspective box closed or taped shut on the floor. When you shade it, you get a pretty good representation of a room. You notice I made the door dark and light. I add a little color to the walls. I put on some molding. And again, the back wall you just use horizontal lines. Then you use the vanishing point to continue the lines here and here. I did the same for the baseboard. I made it straight, and then anything else, I used the vanishing point to draw. And that's how you draw a room interior. That's a 1-point room interior with a 2-point box, a 3-point perspective poster on the wall, and a 1-point perspective box that's closed, all in one room. So we've used all the things we've learned, excluding curved lines, in one lesson.